Hey, welcome to the podcast, Mike.
Hey, what's happening? Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. For anyone who doesn't know you, who do you say you are?
I like to think of myself as a creative director. Um, quick introductory of me. Um, I'm a military veteran turned creative. Always liked the camera growing up.
Mhm.
Finally started picking it up in 2007, 2008. Um, didn't actually start trying to do things with it till about 2015. And have been working my way forward ever since, just navigating the space, making connections, practicing, doing work and different things like that along
Yeah,
those lines of camera work, should I say.
right. I like it. I guess what got you into camera work and photography? Do you do both photography and videography?
Yeah, I do photography and videography. Um, what got me into it is I was doing heavy work in manufacturing
Mm.
at the time. And then from me working manufacturing, I wanted to shift. I knew I didn't want to spend the rest of my days in a factory.
Mm.
So I started getting into marketing. Wanted to start working towards my own marketing firm. The companies I was working with at the time, I was working with Mosaic.
Mhm.
It's a pretty good company. They do a lot of third party marketing events and different things like that. Got to work with brands like T-Mobile with them. Started working with American Express and some different things like that, and
Mhm.
started to pivot towards wanting to get into my own marketing company.
Mhm.
Was making some connections at the Railcat stadiums and different things like that. The Railcat Stadium is a semi-pro baseball team
Mhm.
um, in Northwest Indiana, right outside Chicago. Made some connections, got them partnered with Metro PCS at the time, and they ended up doing a major deal to where the Railcats team ended up being hiring Timo Metro PCS, should I say,
Mhm.
as their one of their biggest sponsors, and I didn't get any recognition for it, making a connection and putting the pieces in motion, or giving the play to the T-Mobile team. So started pivoting towards doing my own marketing thing. Started doing some marketing work with Firehouse Subs. Um, again, was still doing stuff with Metro PCS at the time.
Mhm.
And then I was coming across a campaign where I wanted a certain image for the photos and videos. And nobody could quite recreate what I had in my head.
Mhm.
So, me having some photography and video background, I started getting back behind the camera. Was doing less in front of the camera, and found out I love being behind the camera a lot more than in front of the camera. So there's
Mhm. So your first venture into photography, videography was actually in front of the camera before you went behind the camera?
that. Yeah. So backtrack some more years. In high school, I did radio and television.
Mm.
So we were producing and hosting shows
Mhm.
more than creating our own.
Gotcha.
So I had the scope of what they do in radio, had the scope of what they do in television, from the producer side of it and
Mhm.
being on the show. Just less of the creating everything all by my own type deal.
Gotcha. And you guys were doing like the morning announcements and everything like that for your school, or you're doing outside of school?
So it was outside of school. So in Northwest Indiana, they have a thing called the Gary Area Career Center.
Mm.
It's where they take high school students and teach them real world skills for trades.
Mm.
Um, a couple of the selected classes is cosmetology, nursing and CNA, childcare development, automotive, computer programming, and radio television.
Mm.
Um, I was going to do automotive, but I knew I didn't want to be a grease monkey. Um, so I ended up pivoting and got into radio and television just because I used to always hear you have a radio voice. So
Yeah.
wanted to see what it was like and got into the class. Within my first year there, out of all the students, I was the most called in um, host because of my voice.
Mm.
So it was pretty cool experience. Got a chance to work with some people I knew that was in the local area that was doing like community work and different things like that.
Mhm.
So they got to see that I knew how to do those different things. So it opened up some avenues for me later.
Awesome. And I guess we're kind of working backwards, but trying something different. How did you go from having some exposure to TV, video production, and directing to deciding to join the military?
Had a kid early. So I got my son's mom pregnant my sophomore year, going into my junior year. Um,
Of high school?
Correction, rephrase that. I got her pregnant my junior year, going into my summer, going into my senior year. And I didn't want to chase the idea of chasing a dream of sports.
Mm.
I was a really good athlete. Um, on the board, I would have been a 4-star athlete.
Mm.
Um, but I didn't want to chase the idea and risk getting injured and not having a future for my son.
Mm.
So I was in ROTC in high school. So I knew if I went into the military, I'll automatically start at an E3
Mhm.
and be able to go from there while I figured out what I wanted to really get into. Because outside of me going to school and studying business, I didn't have a specific focal point at that time.
Got you. And where'd you grow up at the time? Just kind of coming up to that point.
Northwest Indiana. So
Okay.
came out of Gary, Indiana. Um, Family was born in Mississippi, relocated to Northwest Indiana at an early age. Um, I want to say we moved out there my third grade.
Hmm.
We were in Schaumburg, Illinois for kindergarten through first, and then split for second grade and Schaumburg and Gary, Indiana. So from third grade to graduation, I was in Northwest Indiana.
Got you. It's pretty neat. And I guess, does that mean you have family both in Mississippi, Indiana, and now Dallas?
Oh, I have family all across the country. So a lot of the people migrated from being in Mississippi to branching out to Chicago. That's why me and my folks moved up there. So we had a great uncle that lived out in Chicago, and we moved out that way.
Mhm.
One of my great uncles lived in Northwest Indiana. We had people in my sister and a lot of my family lives out in Georgia. I have family that's down here in Texas, out in Lubbock, Houston, Dallas. So I mean, got people in California. You
Mhm.
name it, we got some people everywhere.
Got you.
My dad was the youngest of 11 siblings. My mom was the oldest of 9.
Wow. That's a good family, a big family.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I guess with that, what was it like growing up for you? Did you have for yourself multiple siblings, or how did things shake out on that end?
Yeah, I'm the youngest of 5 siblings. Um, my closest sibling above me would have been my brother, and he had a 6-year gap.
Mhm.
Um, so technically, all of my siblings are half sisters and brothers, but we just family. We all siblings. We treat each other no different. None of that stuff.
Mhm. That's what's up. I guess I used to be number 5 for a little while until my younger brother was born, but I kind of know what it's like being the the youngest one, or close to the
Gotcha.
youngest one. So then,
Right.
what was the What was the military experience for you like?
Military for me, I went into the Navy straight out of high school.
Mm.
Um, I wanted to do something different from the Army ROTC program that I was in. So I just wanted to try a new experience and get a chance to navigate that.
Mhm.
Was stationed in San Diego, California. Got spoiled with the weather. When it was time for me to get out, I ended up moving back home. Uh, Kind of the worst decision, I would say, coming out of the military. Should have stayed in the new area and just adjusted from there.
Mm.
But it was actually good timing, I guess, that I moved back because I ended up losing my father a few months after. Um, and then from there, um, got into college for a bit and then got back into the Army doing National Guard and reserves.
Got you. Sorry to hear about your dad.
Things happen. I'm a lot older now, so it doesn't bother me um, in that sense um, of, I guess, when you hear their name or the subject of them, that it deters or distracts.
Mm. And so you were in the Navy for how long, and then you decided to go into the National Guard?
I did 4 years Army and then 4 years Navy, then 4 years Army.
Got you. How is there? Would you put one over the other?
Um, because I was active duty when I did Navy,
Mhm.
I always recommend active duty anything. Yeah, having that option to do National Guard reserves and stuff like that, that it's cool. It sounds cool.
Mhm.
Um, but if you it interrupts your normal flow of life,
Mhm.
right? So National Guard and Army, you are doing things based on a scheduled
Mhm.
training rather than being in it all the time. So you still have a regular full-time job, still got your regular life going on, and then once a month or during certain training periods, your life is getting interrupted to
Mhm.
where you have these obligations that you got to go fulfill.
Got you.
Employers can't say they don't like it, but a lot of them don't because they have to work around your schedule. Like it's
Mhm.
mandatory for them to abide by those obligations that you have.
Mhm.
So whether it's you have to work a half a shift rather than a full shift on the night before you do anything because you have to travel, or um, in the middle of the summer you have 2 weeks where you have to take off that they can't use towards your vacation time or missed time from work or anything like that that you're going to be taking off for training.
Mhm.
Um, Whether it's medical appointments or different things that might come up that the Army wants you to do, they have to give you that time off.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of employers don't like it. Plus, for me, being active, you get to experience and do more things.
Mhm.
So, say for instance, there's certain trainings you want to do and different things like that. In the National Guard and the reserves, you have to wait because they're going to qualify active duty for those spots first. Then they're going to go active National Guard first, active reserves, and then if you're in a unit that's not on a active campaign or assignment, then
Mhm.
you are optional for those type trainings. So it
Got
was training that I wanted to do for the full 4 years that I was in and never got a chance to do them
you. Mhm.
just because I was so far back on that waiting list.
Right. So I see your point. So it's like you're constantly on the wait list and you don't get to be fully in it, and you still have to maintain a job to sustain you, because it's almost like you're doing it as volunteer work almost.
Yep.
Gotcha. Cool. And I guess, so going from Navy to Army, at what point do you end up like going to the plant or having to do a job you don't really like, and then eventually making the transition to do what you're doing now?
Um, Actually, I didn't have a problem with the military. Like I said, I knew about it and everything from being in high school and being in ROTC.
Mhm.
So I knew what I was getting myself into. I grew up in a traditional Southern style family. So you show your elders respect and different things like that. So all of the yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sirs, no sirs, and all that type of formality stuff,
Mhm.
it was common for me growing up because that's what you do in the South and in certain family generations in the Midwest. So none of that stuff bothered me. I was used to following rules because I mean that's what you do in a family. Like
Right.
I grew up in a, like I said, traditional Southern family. So you got these rules you got to follow and different things like that. I already knew, just because I'm an analytical person, life is a game.
Mm.
You play by the rules, you win certain prizes. You do stupid things, you're gonna win stupid prizes. So it wasn't that got me out. My youngest son, my oldest son, correction, is 3
Mhm.
at the time, and he stated he wanted me to come home. So that's what I did.
Gotcha. And what was it like being able to make that decision and spend that time with your son? Because he's ultimately the reason why you made the sacrifice to go to the military to figure things out, or just to kind of have a leg up to say, okay, I don't know exactly which direction I go, but at least this is a better option, a better alternative.
Um, it was easy. A lot of my early on adult decisions were based on the outlook for him.
Mhm.
So I don't regret or complain about any of the decisions I made. It was the best decisions at the time. So
Mhm.
I made those and I adjusted to it. So when it came for him saying he wanted me around more, he's at that age where he can talk and he can speak for himself. So cool. I'm gonna go ahead and make this adjustment. It wasn't like I was at a long portion of my contract where I had just reenlisted or anything like that.
Mhm.
Um, I was actually coming up to the end of my contract, and um, that's when he had told me. So it was an easy transition for me.
Nice. And I meant, what was it? So when you transitioned back home, like what all did you have to do getting kind of like getting back in the flow of civilian life?
That um, was the most challenging, just because um, at the time the military didn't have, like, they were working towards having a structure for it where
Mhm.
you did like a warrior transition training, right? And they sit you down, you're watching a PowerPoint, and they're saying, hey, you should apply for jobs about this time out. If you are looking to go to interviews, we can give you that time off to go to these interviews,
Mhm.
as long as it's a local interview type deal. Well, I was stationed in San Diego, California, and I was moving back to Northwest Indiana.
Mhm.
So for me, all of my interviews, like, I was getting out the service on this day. Um, my dad was flying. I flew my dad out to help me drive back because when I drove back, like, I had a 2 hour window from the time I was supposed to arrive to
Mhm.
get to my first interview. So
Mhm.
like it wasn't the greatest and smoothest opportunity. Now I'm things are a lot more easy when it comes to looking at things in that type of scope, just because more employers now are into doing Zoom calls for interviews and different things like that. Um, but finding work when I got home and adjusting from it, um, it was a transition because I was active duty.
Mhm.
So anything you do on active duty, civilians can't reach out to your employer and ask them questions. They don't have any contact information for them, because for one, you're not there. You don't have your superior cell phone numbers at that time.
Mm.
This is before, you know what I'm saying, the big boom where everybody was like, nah, take my cell phone, don't take my office number. Like
Yeah.
everybody at that time was still giving you their office numbers. So you can have my people's office number, but if they're out to sea, you ain't gonna never reach them.
Mm.
And then, I mean, if you call the base, I mean, I'm just one installation on the base, they gonna be like, bro, it's like 50 million people on here. Like, we ain't trying to hear nothing you got to say.
Right.
Uh,
And you
or
having a common name, it's not going to be, you're not going to be the easiest to find.
Oh, big time. There are 2,700 Michael Halls in the US
Mm.
alone. Literally have worked with three of them.
How do you guys distinguish each other?
I was the only black one. So so for me, yeah, it works well, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's funny. Oh man. Um, I kind of lost my, my train of thought. Sorry.
No
But
worries.
so around what year was this? Like when you were going from the Navy, like going into the Navy, coming out of the Navy, and then eventually going into the Army.
So I was getting out of the Navy in 2007, 2008.
Mm.
Um, During that time period, within that first 3 months, I was already planning on going to school.
Mhm.
So my idea was when I get home, find a job, I'm gonna go to school, I'm gonna study business, because at the time my dad wanted to open a clothing brand, and I wanted to make sure no one could take advantage of him when it came to anything business. I already wanted to study business anyway.
Mhm.
So a lot of the different things I already knew, but I wanted to get into international side of business studying.
Hmm.
Um,
What do you
Long
mean by
story
that?
short, just being able to do international talks, international contracting, and different things like that.
Gotcha.
Going to school to study the actual international section of business because, I mean, I was proactive.
Mhm.
So when I was younger, I was like, oh, I want to be a lawyer. So I would take time during my free time to study law a little bit and figure out different things and seeing where the best schools were. So when I was in elementary, I wanted to go to Georgetown. I studied and saw, oh, Georgetown, it's going to cost me X amount of dollars to go to school. Okay, what's
Mhm.
a local
Yeah.
college or university I can go to? Oh, Notre Dame has a really good law program.
Mm.
Cool. Oh, it's 7 years for most people before they can open their own practice and be profitable. That ain't
Mhm.
what I want to do.
Mhm.
So I switched it to business, and I was like, all right, I can do stock markets. Um, Studied stock market trends, knowing what the different things that entail, knowing about calls, puts. I knew all that stuff younger, but it wasn't as attractive to me compared to what it is now when you look
Mhm.
at stock markets, the
Yeah.
stock market. So like a lot of the stuff that people are like blowing up and taking advantage of now,
Mhm.
that stuff didn't it wasn't like that when I was growing up. So it wasn't as easy for someone to go open a brokerage account
Mhm.
and then just put their own money into those brokerage accounts and just make it grow like that.
Right.
At that time, you had to have a broker and different things like that. So, um, I mean, shout out to the world for evolving and changing. Um, so I knew he wanted to do a clothing line, so I wanted to make sure I understood international business so I can know about customs and if we needed to export or import something, how to make sure everything was going to be done properly so I can help him elevate that portion of things.
Gotcha. That's pretty cool. And I guess, like you said, your time was kind of cut short, but how was the pursuit of going through business school or trying to like see how things were internationally and the that whole process?
It actually got cut short a lot differently. Um, the week I enrolled um, was the week my dad was murdered.
Oh wow.
Um, so my dad had got remarried.
Mhm.
From them getting remarried, it was like a week later. They hadn't went on their honeymoon yet. They were planning to go on it.
Mhm.
Um, so I was like, when he gets back, I'll let him know that I enrolled. And then I was at home. Someone called my great uncle. Well, correction, it was the authorities. They called my great uncle
Mhm.
because he was one of the last few contacts my dad had reached out to, and told him my dad had passed away. So my great uncle was trying to reach me, but I was at my mom's house visiting her.
Mhm.
Uh, so he reached out to the family that was in Mississippi. My sister called me. I'm like, there's no way he's dead. I just saw him like literally Friday, and they probably gone on a honeymoon a few days early, whatever the case may be. Called and left my dad a voicemail. Um, about an hour, hour and a half went by. I didn't hear back from him, and I'm like, my dad normally calls me back immediately,
Mhm.
type deal. And I didn't have his new wife's contact information or anything like that. So called my mom, let her know what was going on. Um, Headed out to the house. This is back old enough when you still used to get the cell phone bill in the mail,
Mhm.
and it would have all your call logs on it.
Right. Right.
Um, so shout out to being wanting to be a lawyer early. So I knew about doing private investigation work and different things like that.
Mhm.
Looked over the call logs, found all the numbers that matched up on a frequent basis.
Mhm.
Called the number, reached the ex-wife. She called and confirmed it with me. Um, my mom was coming up time to come off work, so I had to take the vehicle back to her. Reached out to my pastor at the time, and him and some other guys at the church drove me out
Mhm.
uh, to Chicago area, to Dalton, Illinois,
Mhm.
uh, to go to the actual coroner's office. By the time I got there, one of my cousins had already identified the body. But yeah, it was literally 3 months from the time I got home
Mhm.
from the military. So
Wow.
happened fairly quickly. Um, Had a short, well, not a short, but I spiraled after that. At the time, I was like, oh, I told my dad I was going to go to school for business, so I'm going to
Mhm.
keep it going. And I mean, it wasn't a time in for me. I couldn't focus and study like I needed to.
Mhm.
Uh, um, so I purposely was like going to school just so I wouldn't be at home by myself. But I wasn't doing anything productive at the time to help myself in a sense.
Gotcha. And how old are you at this time?
Literally was 2020. Yeah,
That's a lot.
I was 20. It was right before my 21st birthday.
So from 18 or wait,
Yeah, I graduated early.
gotcha. Okay. Because I'm sitting here like, so you're basically like a savant, graduate 16, 17, go into the military, do your years,
Mhm.
get out, get ready to do this other thing. It's like you're still prime age, but life
Yeah.
just kind of hits you
And
in the face.
yeah, in my sense, um, like the military doesn't teach you how to be an adult, right? It doesn't teach you how to be a man.
Mhm.
They just in the military, you get up, you know your routine that you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
Um, so me, when I was getting out, I was like, this is my time to transition and learn all the other things that I feel I need to know as a man or as an adult or as a father.
Yeah.
Um, so as I was entering that stage, it was cut short for me, and I had to fall for it. after that going forward.
Gotcha. And what's so interesting about what the point you just made about not being shown how to be a man, and when you say you basically have to just you learn how to follow a routine, and a part of me was almost thinking it's like, or I think I've been taught that part of being a man is like having a routine, but I think that's just part of being human, like being able to have something you can look to. But
Yeah,
I think you make a better point about um, being a man isn't just what you do. It's not just the providing, protecting,
right.
and looking over things. But I think to your point, a lot of like the intangibles get missed.
Yeah. Um, a few of the things that I don't mind speaking out about,
Mhm,
like the emotional guidance of being a black man in America. Like
mhm,
my parents, again, I used to live in Schaumburg, Illinois. If anybody knows about Schaumburg, Illinois, that's the rich part of Illinois, out where all the athletes and everything else live. So me growing up, we were the only black family there.
mhm,
Um, to me, I wasn't experiencing racism, but I got picked on.
mhm,
And to me, everybody gets picked on, right? I'm a younger kid. These kids were in middle school.
mhm,
But in my eyesight, they weren't bullying me because I was black. They were bullying me just because I was a younger kid.
mhm.
Um, and like everything we kept in our perspectives and everything was there's just bad people in the world, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I remember opportunities in that same community where um, I was riding my bike, didn't tie my shoe, and my like shoestring got like severely caught up in my bike pedal,
Yep.
and everybody was driving by. I couldn't get up because my shoe was caught so deep into it that a dude on a bike, a Harley Davidson motorcycle,
Mhm.
tattooed up, motorcycle clubs, leathers, everything, and I'm like, oh my god, he's finna like come to kidnap me or whatever. But he came over, helped me get loose, and when he helped me get loose, I did just like a animal in the wild would do. Like they're gonna take off running, right?
Mhm.
Because they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But later that same weekend, me and the family, we used to always go to a House of Pancakes.
Mhm.
Uh, this was before they started calling it IHOP, but it was literally the House of Pancakes. Um, and the waitress was there. Um, and she came to the table and she said, "I know you."
Mhm.
And everybody looked at me and I'm like, "I don't know her." And then she was like, "Don't worry. I know somebody you will remember." And she called her husband. And he
Mhm.
came up there and he had on his leathers and everything because his guys go out riding every week, every
Mhm.
weekend.
Yeah.
And he came up and I saw him at the table and I'm like, "Oh, you're the one that helped me when I was stuck on my bike."
Mhm.
He was like, "Yeah, I was trying to check on you, but you took off so fast." And I was like, I ain't know what you was gonna do. In the movies, bikers, you know what I'm saying? They not good people.
Right.
So I mean, those were different things that I had to navigate as a kid. But then my dad was able to, oh yeah, certain people just because they look a certain way doesn't mean they're bad people. This, that, and the other.
Right.
Um, like I got that taught at an early age, but when it came to being a father that was active in there,
Mhm.
I hadn't outside of him setting the example. I didn't have much to go off of. Like I didn't
Mhm.
have those life hacks of, all right, you're gonna end up running into this. This is how we can do this. This is
Yeah.
how we can do that. These are different opportunities with something that can come up with your car, and we can
Yeah.
navigate and get that fixed by doing this, this, and this.
Right.
Like all
Right.
that stuff that I would have learned in that time frame. I was in the military,
Mhm.
so
That makes sense. And I think to your point, it's you can't really that phrase goes true. You can't judge a book by its cover. And it's interesting that Um, maybe sometimes we're programmed to see things a certain way, but it's good to know that different people that just like they're good people out there, regardless of what they look like. And to
Like,
your point, like just going through that process, what was it like? Like you mentioned spiraling out of control and just having to come to the grips of like, okay, you're just starting adulthood. Like you have a son that's now 3, and you're trying to raise him when you just lost your own dad, and you're trying to figure out like, okay, how how do you be a dad? How do I um like how do I become a man? Like what does this all mean at that time? Like how did you deal with that process, and how long did it take you to work through some things, or what was your process of
um,
trying to work it out?
it took me a while to start figuring out. I mean, being there, making sure he was straight, making sure he had the things that he needed
Mhm.
was all common sense and stuff like that. Um, Me and his mom didn't have the greatest relationship just because of how things happened between us.
Mhm.
But me making sure he was cool, making sure he was well rounded, understanding, and that he was going to be one of the smarter kids of his generation.
Mhm.
So me and him would go read books. As a kid, he ended up enjoying reading early. And that's just because I used to introduce him into books early. Um, got him into computers and gaming and all those different things. That's because, for one, I enjoyed those.
Mhm.
But I knew computers were going to be the way for the future. Um, so teaching him, the minor things that I knew along the lines of it. Um, as far as when he wasn't around, though,
Mhm.
I was a totally different person. Like, it wasn't no examples I was trying to set. I was just in those years of I'm in the moment type deal, to
Mhm.
where I'm doing things just because it's in the moment. Like, I don't care no results. I don't care no consequences. What it is what it is.
Gotcha.
So it took me a while to get out of that. I probably would say what ended up getting me out of it was I had a girlfriend at the time. We broke up, and things went south in our breakup. Wasn't necessarily her fault. It was definitely my fault. But that it was like a wake up call to like, bro, you are being very immature right now. Like,
Mhm.
grow up. And I woke up.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I guess kind of to that point, throughout your process, were you able to find a tribe for yourself? Because I've heard it said that for men, especially young men, there's a notion where it's I don't know, even like maybe you could take me back, going back in high school, like what sport did you play? Because you mentioned you were like a 4-star athlete.
Um, I could play any sport. So in high school, I played basketball, I played football, I played baseball, I wrestled, I was captain of the chess club. I was on a tennis team. Like, when I played tennis, like, I was new to it, but the only person that beat me was the dude that won state.
Mm.
Like, it for me, it didn't matter what sport it was. I can excel in it because I was very athletic. Um, for people that I'm like right now, when people look at me, they be like, "How much you weigh?" I'm like 300 pounds. They're like, "There's no way you weigh 300 pounds."
Mm.
Um, I was the dude that I look slim and slender, but I'm a lot bigger, or stronger than what I looked.
Mm.
Um, so
Even
I,
back in high school.
I graduated high school weighing 191, 8% body fat.
Mm.
Um, when I look at kids now and I'm seeing seniors weighing 160, 170,
Mhm.
I'm like, yo, I was way bigger than these kids. Um, and I remember looking at some of my old photos and I was like, yeah, I was way bigger than these kids because I was coaching high school at one point,
Yeah.
and um, one of the bigger kids that was actually strong and different things like that. I'm like, yo, let me check to see if I'm like making this stuff up in my head.
Mhm.
And I asked him how much he weighed. He was playing middle linebacker. He was like, oh, I weigh 165. And he was
Usually
like,
that's
well,
like a wideout slot. Like you depending
yeah.
on where you're playing, especially in the South, it's like you can't be 160 something being a linebacker.
So again, shout out to me knowing how to do information and research. Your average running back when I graduated high school was 205 to 225.
Wow.
And I graduated 191. I'm like, oh, I can work out in the summer and get to 225 easily.
Mm.
But I didn't know that most of those athletes still came in around that 165, 175 range.
Uh,
Um, I didn't find out how close to a 5-star prospect I was until after I had went to the service. I had one of my buddies who ended up going to Purdue University in West Lafayette,
mhm.
and we was chopping it up. He was like, "Yeah, only reason I was a 5-star recruit and you was a 4 was because my dad was pushing my film out there."
Mm.
And when I say us in comparison, he graduated at 205.
Mhm.
I graduated at 191, but our body fat percentage, not even close. Like I
Mm.
said, I graduated at 8% body fat. He still was around 20, 21% body fat. Like I was
Significant.
very, I was very lean when it came to what I ate. And that was shout outs to my dad. He knew I wanted to play sports. So he would cook at the crib all the time. He'll make sure he cooked the right foods. He was meal prepping for me before meal prep was a thing because he drove buses at the time.
Mm.
So it'll be a spurt where he out of the house for 3 or 4 days. He made sure he had cooked food for the first 2 days, and
Mhm.
then he wouldn't leave me money so I can go splurge or anything like that on fast food. He'll make sure the fridge was stocked with nothing but fruits, veggies, proper foods that I would cook that I can cook on my own to where I'm not going out and getting burgers and fries on these days or anything that I shouldn't be eating as an athlete trying to perform at my peak performance.
Right. Gotcha. Wow.
So,
That that's very significant. It's like dads make a great impact because
mhm.
it's like to have them in your life for that amount of time and just to know what that felt like is significant. And what I was curious about, the reason I asked you about high school, it's like through all of life happening, going through high school, going into the Navy, transferring, coming back home, like were you able to keep a core group of friends during then or like a tribe or a wolf pack type thing?
um, so throughout high school, I had four buddies that I used to well, three buddies that I used to hang out with.
Mhm.
Um, the day I was leaving for basic, I ended up cutting one of those buddies off um, because he got into some stuff that could have got me in trouble right before I left.
Mm.
And I'm like, bro, you putting me at risk right now. Like, nah, we can't roll no more.
Right, right.
Like they end up getting arrested type deal.
Mm. Yeah, can't
Uh,
have that.
so I cut him off. Me and him. I mean, he still, checks in from time to time, see how I'm doing and stuff like that. But mentally, I'm like, I you're not there. I can't see myself going backwards and uh letting somebody that doesn't make those right decisions like that, like in like that. One of the other buddies happened to be his cousin. So by default, he got put on the chopping block too. Um, I mean, nothing to say that he wasn't going to make the proper adjustments, but he also
Right.
was the wild one out the bunch, right? Um,
Kind of guilty by association.
Guilty by association, as well as he was supposed to be the oldest one in the group, but wasn't making. I was the mature one out the group. I'll put it that way.
Gotcha.
And then the wildest firecracker. Me and him still really good friends to this day. He was the wildest one out of the bunch, but um, me and him knew each other for so long that like I'm his calming point. He's my calming point. Like my dad passed. Like I remember one day, the grief and everything finally got to me, and I had a breakdown. Like mom couldn't calm me down. Nobody could figure out anything, and she happened to be passing them on the highway. Like they were about to take me to the hospital because I was like hyperventilating and everything. And they were passing them on the highway. And she flagged them down. They stopped. And within like 5 minutes, he was like, his mom was like, he can come with us. I'll take him to the hospital. I live that not that far from it.
Mhm.
But he can come with us. That 5 minutes of being around him, I was chill,
Mhm.
calm down and everything. A few years later, he had a similar episode. His grandfather had passed away, and he literally had the same situation. I pulled up within 5 minutes, back home.
Mhm.
So me and him have been tight ever since probably what, fifth, sixth grade.
Wow.
But as I grew, distance is a thing, but mostly now my tribe is just more creatives and people that are trying to get to that next level.
That's what's up. And I think that kind of points to how we met and being introduced to ET, the hip hop preacher, Eric Thomas, Dr. Eric Thomas, and getting in an environment where it's like, okay, other people do look for different things. We may look different. We may come from different cities, countries, continents, but just having that mindset of wanting something different, especially if you know it's like, I don't know exactly what I want, but I have an inkling. And being able to
Mhm.
talk to someone else like that is a wonderful thing.
Oh yeah, big time, definitely.
It's awesome.
Um, to attest to that, I actually we met what BU
Mhm.
on the social media call. Um, I would probably say out of everybody on the call, me and we you were like one of the first people that I connected with where I was like, okay, I could socialize with him outside of the social media calls and different things like that.
Appreciate that.
Just because we had like we both were introverts,
Mhm.
um, but our our animal assessment at the time
Mhm.
um, were almost identical.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, your turtle chameleon and your turtle is a 90 something, and your chameleon was like 80 something.
Mhm. I think I was like 99, 99, or yeah, you're probably right.
And then mine was same numbers, just off by like 4 or 5 points.
Mhm.
So my natural state is turtle, but my uh, changed is chameleon.
Mhm.
So when adaptation happens, I bounce up to my chameleon to match my turtle.
Mhm.
Uh,
That makes
and if I
sense.
remember, yeah, yours was the same way. So,
Yeah. And I think um just the thing about that, it's like using the disc assessment. You look at the D, the I, the S, and the C, where it's like D is the gorilla, the I is the flamingo, the S is the chameleon, the C is the turtle. It's like I really appreciated what Chris Daniels did with it, because he was the one that
Mhm.
really introduced me to it, where it's, I think my first year out of college doing, um, I think they had us do something like that for work in our week of orientation, but it's like you're drinking from a fire hose. And it's just like, here's information, here's information, here's information. And the way he broke it down using animals and characteristics that we could identify with, people were like, yay. And it was nice to meet other turtles or other chameleons, because it's like the gorillas and the flamingos, they kind of got they seem to get the shine, because like ET's is a flamingo, and like they're the extroverts, and people don't really pay attention to the introverts, and people are kind of weirded out, like, how are you doing a podcast and you don't really talk like that? And it's like, I might not talk to you per se, but if I get around someone else that I can
Oh
identify
yeah,
with and they'll let me get a word in, then I can talk. And it's
yeah.
like, sometimes I might have trouble shutting up, because it's like I've got so much to say, because I felt like I haven't talked for a while. But then once I run out of words, I like kind of get tuckered out, and I'm like, okay, 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 let me catch my breath. And it's like, we're just steady moving, but we're
Hmm.
still moving. It's like, it might be slow, it might be that, but to your point, like your voice being like a radio voice, that calm, that peace, I think it resonates to see the value in it, and seeing that value of yourself through someone else is welcoming, because it's, we kind of grow up different, but for whatever reason, it's that my experience has been that more people that are extroverted are valued for their extroversion. And I've seen it more now as an adult, that introverts are valued with social media, with things like
Hmm.
that, where people are like, oh, okay, you can be behind the camera, you can write things in text, you can explain something, or you can color code something. And people are like, oh, that makes sense. It just jumps out at me. And they're like, oh, okay, you're cool. Like, we can pat you on the head, or like allow you to sit at the table.
Yeah. The way I used to look at it was, my friends used to always talk about in high school, different people in different jobs. And they was like, I don't quite know where Mike would be. I was like, I'm gonna be the one that create up all the policies. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm gonna mess up somewhere and I gotta fix it. So that's just gonna be me. And in its sense, that's what turtles and chameleons traditionally do. They're the ones that's going to be working systems and solutions,
Mhm.
creating those normal routines that everybody else can follow to
Yeah.
make everything a cohesive thing.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, of course, we got to give the others a little bit of a hard time, because they can take it. They can take it. Sometimes it seems like they're not sensitive, but I think like flamingos are sensitive because they care about people. They're like life of the party. When they speak up, it's like, man, I'm glad you're here, because it's natural for you to just like carry the energy and just like
Mhm.
live it up. And then I can like kind of live vicariously through them. And like someone that, it was challenging at first dealing with the dominant, or the gorilla, where it's like, are they just cussing at me, or are they mad, or like, am I always messing up? But it's like, no, they're direct. They're trying to get you to say, okay, before you go a big loop around, just walk this way in a straight line, so that you might move slow, but even with your slowness, you can get to where you're going
Mhm.
effectively. And then that way you don't have to be upset with yourself and frustrated. But like, having this nice little blended family and world that we live in, it's good to actually understand other people's perspectives and see the value in them. But that's what's up.
Big time. Most
But
definitely.
so with social media and being a directive now, like having this thing spark once again, like the thing that was like a dream from high school, and now it's a reality now, where you can produce for yourself, you can get the credit, and um actually employ someone, or be able to work with other people collaboratively. What's it been like for you? Because I think we met 2017, and it's
Yeah, 2017, 2018 is when we met. Being in a space where I can now create how I want. Um, as I told you before, The one thing that I feel is still holding me back is my 9 to 5 and it not being something I can do that's creative. I have a certain set of systems and different things like that that I have to work around. But outside of that, I have a solid team of creatives
Mm,
that I have in my circle where if they're doing things, I'm gonna pull up.
mm,
If I'm doing things, they're pulling up.
yeah.
And we just naturally work well together. One of my guys, I'm the one that got him into photography type deal.
Mhm,
He's been my biggest supporter since I got back to Dallas.
mm,
Um, like he literally since we've been on the chat, he's checking on me now because of the shoot we did Tuesday,
mm,
and he's checking on me to make sure I'm good,
mhm.
but he's also waiting for me to actually post and show what I've been working on.
That's what's up.
He's one to always like I don't like to. I'm not a like I'm not someone that boasts on about what I can do.
Mm,
I'm more of the I can show you type person.
right.
But at the same time, I don't want to show it because like I'm just me. Like I'm super humble.
Mm.
Um, but he chats me up to everybody, and I'm like, I'm glad you see it. I don't necessarily see it that way, but
Yeah,
I mean, I ain't gonna shy down from a challenge. Like
yeah.
I can compete with anybody when it comes to creating. It's just what tools I might not have that they have,
Mm.
or they might have been doing something longer. I'm gonna catch them on the flip side though, because my mind is a lot different from everybody else's, and I'm gonna come with 4 or 5 different other strategies that nobody else thought of.
Mm. I like that. And I know you helped me in the past, and to your point, it's like sometimes it's a struggle to put yourself out there or to share what you do and not feel a type of way about it. But even in asking for help, it's a challenge of like, okay, if you know that you're a support type person or someone that's strategy based and you're always willing to do, but maybe you don't get back. My thing was like, I don't want to overload someone that's like me if I can't support them effectively in a way to where I'm like, okay, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do that? It's like, can you compensate? Can you value their time? Can I value your time? And when I saw something like that, I was like, I think you'd help me with a flyer for an episode. And I was like, man, this looks dope. But let me be upfront. Like, this is where I'm currently at. And let me not like lead on or make false promises because I felt in the past I've either allowed myself to be led on or I just misread a situation because I didn't ask specific questions. And with that, I was like, okay, this is why I want to highlight everyday people. I want to highlight people that feel like, okay, like yeah, I did a thing here or there, but it's not interesting. Get that get the flamingo, get the person that's like, hey, I'm over here selling you this episode. Da, 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 da. I'm like, yeah, we'll get them. Like everybody gets a turn, but it's like um it's an honor to be able to highlight you and to actually learn more about your life having a sit down like this because it's like there's so much to people that we don't know and you only get glimpses with social media. So I appreciate you for doing this.
Oh, most def. It's been a time coming. For the longest, I was like, I don't even know why he's trying to interview me. I'm not nothing special, you know what I'm saying? But that's just me. I like to help. Like you said, you were doing a flyer, and I was like, yo, I can help do a flyer. Like, tell me what you want.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm still the same person.
Yes, sir.
Um, I mean, anybody, I I'm just here to help.
Yeah.
I tell people that all the time. I'm here to help. That's my biggest goal. Um, I give ideas. I give personality. I can teach people how to be on camera, but I can't be on camera. I just don't
Mm,
like it.
mm,
My social battery, as I've gotten older, has gotten shorter,
mm,
and I do what I can. I make time to be social when I have to be.
Mhm.
Um, but it's that certain part on the inside where I'm like, oh, that filter is done. It's burnt out. Um, and I mean, I told you yesterday I had a struggling day at work.
Mhm.
So today I'm like charcoal fueling my personality a little bit. Got my energy drink in hand, trying to keep myself upbeat. But I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
it's just I'm a
you're doing
normal
good.
person.
It's
I
funny.
like to.
I've I found this, and maybe it's not going to come into focus, but it's like another energy drink thing. I found it in moving my stuff. It's like I moved where I moved like 7 months ago, and I didn't fully unpack because I was like, maybe I'll end up moving again. But then I went ahead and renewed, and I was like, let me see what's in these boxes and things like that. And it's like, oh yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, what we got on the horizon for you though? We've been talking about
Oh,
me. Now,
well,
see, no one ever gets to flip it on you, so I want to take the moment to flip it on you and highlight you because you've been doing this podcast thing for quite some time now. You had it, you had it in the production phase where you were starting it when we first met. So that means you've been doing this for what, at least 4 or 5 years now.
yeah, yeah. It was an idea at first, and I think something that sparked it. I didn't even know it was brewing, but I remember we were doing a Wednesday night session, and Nikki was asking for feedback, and I decided to chime in. She's like, "Hold up, now, this isn't a podcast," and I was like, "Okay, this isn't a podcast, but I have an ability to podcast because I've been listening to podcasts," and then just being able to kick it off 2019, which felt like the world was turning upside down for me, and to grab a hold of something, being scared to get on camera, being scared to listen back to my voice and cringing at what I was hearing and seeing, and just being like, okay, well, you're not trying to be perfect. You're not going to edit this because this isn't your strength. And you're not trying to make this another job for yourself. It's make it to be something creative and enjoyable to balance out your work life or just balance out your life in general. And yeah, 4 years, I think going into year five come October. So I think this episode will probably be marking year five.
Oh wow. Look at that. 5 years
Yeah.
creating and your own thing. Well, definitely congrats to you, my brother.
Thank you.
You are definitely crushing it. I want to say you're probably the most consistent um, of anybody that has been on the social media call.
Mhm.
Um, just because you have been doing something consistently the longest and not holding any excuses or anything like that. Like, granted, there's some flamingos out there that they're gonna get the shine over you, but I know for a fact you've been doing this consistently um, since we met, and you definitely deserve your flowers. You're
Appreciate
gonna be on
that.
somebody's TED talk in the future.
I'll take it. I'll take it. But to kind of maybe it's a hard pivot, but to if you want to swing it back to me, we can. But just to take it back to yourself, like what's something you're looking forward to as we're halfway through the year? It's like the back half seems like the year's wrapping up as quickly as it started.
For me, this back half, um, I'm just gonna start getting more and more into my creative bag. Um, hold on, give me one second. What's up? Okay. The battery pack should be there we go.
I was just keeping it consistent.
Oh, no worries, no worries.
But back half of the year.
So this back half of the year, I'm just looking to get more into my creative bag,
Mm,
creating more, trying to work with those who I believe in their vision, right?
mm,
So with me doing photography, video, producing, and different things of that nature, um, I'm not your traditional. person that people will hire, right? I have to, for one, believe in your vision and what you're out there putting into the world, because I don't see the gigs I do as just a job assignment or a way to make money. Like, I want to partner it in a sense because I want to elevate you as the person behind everything. So like the shoot that I did Tuesday was with a video game streamer. He's been hosting his own tournament and been doing it for like 2 years. I first got introduced to him probably 5, 6 months ago. And it was through popping into one of his tournaments and just watching what he was doing. What impressed me is the fact that he does these consistently. He does them well, enough to where he can demand more credit in that space. But he's a humble person that's just beginning. Like, helping him get to that next level is my vision, right?
Right.
I want to help him grow sponsors. I want him to be able to do live tournaments of what he's doing. I want him to be able to compete with these companies that have 6 and 7 figures to throw at these same ideas that he's doing. What he does is he brings out the same tournaments on a more frequent basis. And he's bringing out better competition and viewing experience for the people that are watching. So that's why I'm trying to highlight him and help elevate him.
That's what's up.
So that's all I'm doing. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I talk that often.
Gotcha.
Talking way much more than I normally do.
No, you're good.
It's just highlighting the people I'm working with. Me and Matt, we're going to start working together more on some things, partnering with people that are trying to get to that next level as well. Same as our group and different things like that. So it's just expanding and growing things a little bit beyond what I've been doing, just so I can create those opportunities of further exploration in my own creativity.
That's dope. I like that. It feels good to know people that know each other and just seeing everyone cross over and have the benefit of community, because it's good that we each get to stand out, but when we come together, it's nice to see that, like, you have something that looks like a Megatron or like a super team, and I think that's amazing. But I'll get you out here with this. How can people find out where you are and potentially get to work with you?
Easiest way to find me is on Instagram. You can get at me on there at Mike_creates. It's gonna be a black guy with a beard. He's gonna pop up on your whatchamacallit. That's the easiest way to find me on socials. Email is mikecreates@s4gs.us. But yeah, I'm always willing to work. We can sit, talk, do a discovery, and see how our paths align.
I like it. And from the first question I asked you, are you still who you said you were?
Yeah, I'm a creative director at heart. I've been doing creative things since I was a youngin', and the most creative thing I use for creating is my mind, and I'm always going to use that.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a good one, boss man.
Yes, sir.